working to connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands.
Good evening, I'm Alma Angeles, and you're watching ASEAN in Focus on tonight's headlines. In a candid and solemn ministerial statement delivered in Parliament today, Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong expressed regret for not taking prompt action to address the extramarital affair involving former lawmakers Tan Chuan Jin and Cheng Li-wei. In Thailand, the Move Forward Party, which won the most seats in the recent general election, has been excluded from coalition talks to form the next government. In a significant development, the U.S. Embassy situated in Manila has voiced apprehensions regarding the participation of a Chinese company in a crucial land reclamation endeavor unfolding in Manila Bay. And Typhoon Kanun has brought devastating winds and torrential rains to southern Japan, causing widespread power outages and at least one death. Meanwhile, extreme heat waves have claimed more victims in Asia, with South Korea and Japan reporting deaths from the sweltering heat, and authorities in both countries issuing alerts this week. In a candid and solemn ministerial statement delivered in Parliament today, Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong expressed regret for not taking prompt action to address the extramarital affair involving former lawmakers Tan Chuan Jin and Cheng Li-wei. Prime Minister Lee disclosed that he first became aware of the affair in November 2020 and subsequently engaged in separate discussions with both Mr. Tan and Ms. Cheng. During these talks, both individuals assured him that they would put an end to the affair. Unfortunately, this resolution did not materialize. In an attempt to allow them time to resolve the matter privately and with minimal impact on their lives, Prime Minister Lee made the decision to grant them space to terminate the affair independently. However, despite his hopes, the affair persisted, leading Prime Minister Lee to eventually conclude that the two MPs had to resign.
But by giving the matter some time, I had hoped to give them a softer exit and save them and their families the pain and embarrassment that they are suffering now. I placed much weight on protecting their families, perhaps too much. Regrettably, in the end, Mr. Tan and Ms. Cheng did not stop the affair and both had to go.
Addressing the public's concerns over the delay in taking action, Prime Minister Lee acknowledged that he could have acted sooner. Nevertheless, he emphasized his consideration for the family's welfare, wanting to afford them sufficient time to come to terms with the situation.
In retrospect, and certainly now knowing how things eventually turned out, I agree. I should have forced the issue sooner. But let me explain my general approach as well as my thinking at that point in time. These sorts of relationships happen from time to time. They have happened in the past and no doubt will happen again in the future. In such cases, what we do depends on many factors: the circumstances, how inappropriate or scandalous the behavior was, the family situations. We also have to be conscious of the impact on innocent parties, particularly their spouses and children.
Prime Minister Lee asserted that the affair between Mr. Tan and Ms. Cheng had serious implications for the integrity of the People's Action Party. He underscored the PAP's long-standing policy, or the PAP's long-standing policy of taking decisive action against MPs engaged in inappropriate or scandalous conduct, a policy that was adhered to in this case.
But there can be at least three situations. The first situation is where the individuals involved will be talked to, and if they stop, the matter ends there. The second situation, where immediate action has to be taken. For example, when one party has supervisory power over the other party, and we have in the past taken immediate action in a few cases. third situation, where the relationship raises some questions of propriety beyond it being an extramarital affair per se. The parties will be talked to, but the matter cannot end there. Even if the affair stops, some action has to follow. But what that action is and when it is taken depends on the nature of the facts and the boundaries that have been transgressed. The present situation falls into this third category. It's wrong. Mr. Tan and Ms. Cheng had to stop their affair. I told them to stop.
Furthermore, Prime Minister Lee aimed to use this episode as a powerful reminder to all MPs of the high standards of conduct expected from them.
For the case involving a former member across the aisle in the Workers' Party, all their families are suffering. I hope that MPs and the public can empathize and have compassion for the families and give them the privacy and space they need to heal.
Former President Rodrigo Duterte met with his successor, Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr., at Malacanang on Wednesday for a crucial discussion. The meeting was reportedly about Duterte's recent high-level talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Presidential Communications Office, or PCO Secretary Chelo Garafil, confirmed the meeting, saying that it was an opportunity for the two leaders to discuss a range of critical issues. Ms. Garafil said that Duterte shared valuable insights and advice with President Marcos during the meeting, but he didn't disclose any specific details. The former president's visit to Beijing in June was met with heightened interest and anticipation, as it was seen as a sign of a potential thaw in relations between the Philippines and China. President Marcos has said that he is open to receiving input from former President Duterte on how to resolve the outstanding issues between the two countries. The Move Forward Party, which won the most seats in Thailand's recent general election, has been excluded from coalition talks to form the next government. The decision comes as lawmakers grapple with challenges posed by military and pro-royalist senators seeking a way forward amidst complex political dynamics. MFP leader Pita Limjaroenrat, who was seen as a front-runner to become prime minister, was unable to secure enough backing from the Senate, which is dominated by appointees of the previous junta. His staunch determination to reform Thailand's stringent royal defamation laws also proved to be a contentious issue. In a statement, the Pheu Thai party leader said that the formation of the new government will not include MFP. He said our efforts will be channeled towards securing adequate votes.
พรรคเพื่อไทยได้ปรึกษาหารือกับพรรคก้าวไกลร่วมมือและเดินหน้าจัดตั้งรัฐบาลพรรคร่วมใหม่เสนอชื่อนายเศรษฐาทวีสินแคนดิเดตนายกรัฐมนตรีของพรรคเพื่อไทยดำรงตำแหน่งนายกรัฐมนตรีพรรคเพื่อไทยและนายเศรษฐาทวีสินขอยืนยันชัดเจนว่าเราจะไม่สนับสนุนการแก้ไขมาตรา112และการจัดตั้งรัฐบาลใหม่จะไม่มีพรรคก้าวไกลอยู่ในพรรคร่วมพรรคเพื่อไทยจะใช้ความพยายามรวบรวมเสียงให้เพียงพอต่อการจัดตั้งรัฐบาลอย่างเหมาะสมและพรรคก้าวไกลจะทำหน้าที่เป็นฝ่ายค้านและยืนยันจะทำงานการเมืองในมิติใหม่ที่จะเป็นประโยชน์ต่อประเทศชาติและพี่น้องประชาชน
As a potential alternative, Pheu Thai will put forward property tycoon Sretna Thavisin as their candidate for prime minister. The process demands approval from both houses of parliament, the 500 elected MPs, and the 250 senators appointed during the previous junta era. The news has been met with anger from some MFP supporters who have taken to the streets to protest.
คุณบอกแต่ว่าต้องตั้งให้เร็วๆเพื่อเศรษฐกิจเพื่อประเทศก้าวหน้าทำไมคุณไม่เอาพรรคที่เราเลือกมาเป็นอันดับหนึ่งร่วมด้วยไม่เข้าใจ
Pheu Thai, widely perceived as a platform for the Shinawat political clan, whose members include two former prime ministers ousted by military coups in 2006 and 2014 remains at the forefront of these intricate political maneuvers. In a significant development, the United States Embassy situated in Manila has voiced apprehensions regarding the participation of a Chinese company in a crucial land reclamation endeavor unfolding in Manila Bay. Now, this joint venture, spearheaded by the Manila City government in collaboration with Waterfront Manila Premier Development, aims to reclaim an expansive 318-hectare stretch of land equivalent to 786 acres from the waters adjacent to the U.S. Embassy and the Philippine Navy headquarters. The U.S. Embassy has articulated its reservations about the project, primarily stemming from the potential adverse and lasting effects on the environment. A prominent concern further centers around the involvement of a Chinese firm, which has been blacklisted by the U.S. due to its direct involvement in supporting the Chinese military's construction and militarization of artificial islands within the South China Sea. Simultaneously, environmental advocacy groups have raised their own alarms about the undertaking, cautioning that it has the potential to exacerbate the prevalent flooding challenges faced by the sprawling metropolis, accommodating a population of approximately 13 million residents. Integral to the project's government permit is the stipulation that the contractor must establish a 200-meter access channel to accommodate the Philippine Navy's operational requirements. Philippine Environment Secretary Antonia Yulo Loizaga has disclosed that multiple parties have similarly expressed concerns about the reclamation initiative.
As I've said from the beginning of my term, any disturbance to the ecology will bring about a disruption of systems. And so what the DNR is espousing and what we are about to do, and I've said this in public as well in the last two fora, we will be conducting a cumulative impact assessment of the reclamation projects as approved, so that we can demonstrate or illustrate and share what the cumulative impact of all of these projects would be on Manila Bay. You know that Manila Bay actually encompasses 3 regions. It's quite wide, and therefore the areas of NCR 4A all the way up to Bataan and Bulacan would be part of the consideration. There is a Manila Bay Sustainable Development Master Plan that was done in the previous administration. It hasn't been finalized. We are going to be using that as a reference to the baseline condition for the cumulative impact assessment.
In tonight's Southern News, Typhoon Kanun has brought devastating winds and torrential rains to southern Japan, causing widespread power outages and at least 1 death. The storm, which is currently moving slowly across the region, has maximum sustained winds of 200 kilometers per hour, or approximately 124 miles per hour. It has already caused flooding and landslides in some areas, and authorities have issued evacuation orders for over 690,000 people. In Okinawa, the storm has knocked out power to more than 210,000 households. Flights to and from the island have also been canceled, and many roads are impassable. The Fire and Disaster Management Agency has confirmed the death of a 90-year-old man who was killed when a garage collapsed on him. 11 other people have been injured. The JMA has warned that the storm is expected to continue to bring strong winds and heavy rain for the next few days. Residents in the affected areas are urged to stay safe and follow the instructions of local authorities. Meanwhile, in northern Taiwan, the island is finding again. Meanwhile, northern Taiwan finds itself in the grip of Typhoon Kanun's menacing advance, compelling the closure of schools and businesses and triggering flight cancellations as the storm inches closer with its ominous promise of floods and powerful winds. As classified by Taiwan's Weather Bureau as a formidable second strongest typhoon, Typhoon Kanun is on a deliberate trajectory toward the island's northeastern coastline. Roaring with maximum winds of 198 kilometers per hour, the typhoon's eye positioned itself 360 kilometers off Taipei in the East China Sea at 9:15 a.m. local time. Its gradual movement is charted at approximately 5 kilometers per hour in a westerly direction. Typhoon Kanun follows hot on the heels of Typhoon Doksuri's recent lashings, which unleashed heavy rainfall and formidable winds across Taiwan's southern regions. In response to the approaching storm, northern cities, including the capital Taipei, shut businesses and schools. Taiwan's stock and foreign exchange markets were also closed. Nearly 40 international flights have been canceled, while all domestic ferry lines were suspended. In Taipei, subway services were reduced, while hundreds of soldiers were on standby in nearby cities for disaster response. Authorities warned residents to stay indoors and avoid unnecessary travel. The storm is expected to weaken as it moves away from Taiwan, but it's still likely to cause some disruption in the region. Meanwhile, extreme heat waves have claimed more victims in Asia, with South Korea and Japan reporting deaths from the sweltering heat and authorities in both countries issuing alerts this week. In South Korea, temperatures have topped 100 degrees Fahrenheit or 38 degrees Celsius this week, and at least 23 people have died of heat-related causes since late May. More than 400 heat stroke cases have been reported among tens of thousands of teenage campers at the World Scout Jamboree. In Japan, meanwhile, temperatures as high as 103.6 degrees have been recorded in southern parts of the country, and a special heat stroke alert has been issued in 32 prefectures. A 13-year-old student died of suspected heat stroke on her way home from school last week. Scientists have warned that extreme weather events have become more frequent and damaging as a result of global warming. The extreme heat waves in Asia are a reminder of the serious threat that climate change poses to human health. Governments in both South Korea and Japan are urging people to take precautions to stay safe in the heat, such as staying indoors, drinking plenty of fluids, and wearing loose-fitting clothing. Amidst a relentless onslaught of unforgiving weather, Beijing grapples with the devastating aftermath of torrential rains, leading to casualties and widespread disruption. As China braces for an imminent third typhoon in as many weeks, the nation's resilience is being tested on multiple fronts. At least 11 lives have been claimed by the torrential downpours in Beijing, with 13 individuals still reported missing, further underscoring the gravity of the situation. In an unfortunate twist of fate, the remnants of last week's superstorm Doksuri continue to inundate Beijing for the fourth consecutive day. Adding to the tumultuous scenario, yet another typhoon looms on the eastern coast, amplifying the threat. The catastrophic flooding has left a trail of chaos across several districts, dealing a blow to train services and vehicular traffic. With an ardent focus on safeguarding lives, more than 50,000 people in the city have been evacuated, as confirmed by state media reports. While Doksuri's initial path left a grim mark on the Philippines and Taiwan, its residual effects have thrust China into an ongoing crisis. Even as the nation grapples with the immediate aftermath, a fresh wave of heavy rains is forecasted for the upcoming week. As the mercury soared to unprecedented levels in July 2023, solidifying it as the hottest month ever recorded, global leaders convened to address the pressing need for escalated climate action and justice. With the pivotal COP28 conference on the horizon, slated to convene in Dubai from November 30 to December 12, UN officials stressed the imperative of swift and resolute measures to combat the looming climate catastrophe.
UN and EU monitors stated that July is set to be the hottest month recorded in history and likely unprecedented for thousands of years, warning that this was a taste of the world's climate future.
Climate change is here, it is terrifying, and it is just the beginning. The era of global warming has ended, the era of global boiling has arrived. The air is unbreathable, the heat is unbearable, and the level of fossil fuel profits and climate inaction is unacceptable. No more greenwashing, no more deception, and no more abusive distortion of antitrust laws to sabotage net zero alliances.
Searing heat intensified by global warming has baked parts of Europe, Asia, and North America this month, combining with wildfires that have scorched across Canada and parts of southern Europe.
The first week of July, starting from 4th to 7th, could be considered as the warmest period or the warmest week ever recorded.
Many countries in the Northern Hemisphere are now experiencing extreme heat, driven by the El Nino weather pattern and climate change. 2 weeks ago, we saw the hottest day on record. Extreme heat takes the greatest toll on those least able to manage its consequences, such as older people, infants and children, and the poor and homeless. It also puts increased pressure on health systems.
It really is completely unprecedented, this kind of reduction in sea ice that we've seen around the Antarctic. The Antarctic region is normally thought of being relatively stable. It's much colder than the Arctic. We're used to seeing, these big reductions in sea ice in the Arctic, but not in the Antarctic.
The WMO predicts it is more likely than not that global temperature will temporarily rise 1.5 Celsius above the pre-industrial benchmark for at least one of the next 5 years.
Almost certain likelihood that one of the next 5 years will be the warmest on record, and a 66% chance, so more likely than not, of temporarily exceeding the 1.5 degree above pre-industrial for at least one of the 5 years.
Temperature records have tumbled across the Northern Hemisphere this month, with many regions sweltering through weeks of unrelenting heat.
These are not your normal weather systems of the past. They have arrived as a consequence of climate change. You are losing the North Pole ice, and that is reinforcing that mechanism. It will continue, and it will continue for some time. You have to reverse it. You have to do climate repair to change it. So it is global warming and is going to continue for some time.
On our current course, the average temperature increase by the end of this century is predicted to be 3 degrees Celsius if nothing changes, and our ecosystems, our air, our food, our water, and human life itself would be unrecognizable.
Countries like USA, China, and Greece have taken necessary measures to bolster heat-related methods for their citizens. I am Sara Alcantara, London Bureau. Stay alert, for we live in extraordinary times.
In other news tonight, Vietnam and the Philippines have agreed to strengthen maritime cooperation and quickly handle sea issues through improved bilateral coordination. The agreement was reached during a meeting of the two countries' foreign ministers in Hanoi on Wednesday. The meeting was co-chaired by Vietnamese Foreign Minister Bui Tan Son and Philippine Foreign Secretary Enrique Manalo. Manalo expressed pleasure at his first visit to Vietnam and emphasized that Vietnam was also the first country he has visited since taking office. At the meeting, both sides conducted a comprehensive review and evaluation of the bilateral relationship since the 9th JCBC meeting in Manila in March 2019 and the implementation of the action program for the implementation of Vietnam-Philippines Strategic Partnership in 2019 to 2024. In a joint statement, the ministers said they would work to enhance maritime and ocean cooperation, strengthen information sharing and coordination in dealing with issues arising at sea, and improve the effectiveness of cooperation in preventing and combating illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing activities. They also agreed to strive to bring bilateral trade turnover to $10 billion soon, with an emphasis on rice trade.
To co-chair the 10th meeting of the ASEAN Solidarity and Centrality for Peace, Stability and Development in the region. I note with satisfaction the thriving friendship and multifaceted effects on the security and development in ASEAN since your resumption Secretary of
for a number of ambassador, as well as this time, considering that we will be commemorating several auspicious occasions in the next 3 years. Louis Tanser, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Foreign Ministry, and other agencies in Vietnam, our co-leadership in 2025. And we will also be marking the 50th year of the establishment. Are testaments to our robust bilateral relationship. With President Marcos' state visit.
As my usual habit, I'd like to end the day on a positive note. Let's encourage and build each other up so that no one is left behind. And that's it for tonight's broadcast. I'm Alma Angela. Stay in the news because we live in extraordinary times. Good night.